So here is my backstory. I returned from a party and found my parents lying in my house, dead. And then I decided to take revenge against everyone who wronged me or my town. Alright, Batman, that's cool and all, but do we really need another Batman? Well, not really. But how can we upgrade your backstories? Well, let's get into it. First things first, this is not just a video for players. This actually works for dungeon masters as well. Why? Well, to create an awesome backstory, you need to collaborate both parties, not just one. But I want to hear from you. What is the weirdest backstory a player has ever given to you? Or you may have created? Now, let's get back to it. So, the first thing to take in mind when creating a backstory, or when a player actually gives it to you, is the backstory length. It actually matters. And why, you might ask? Well, it's simple. If the backstory includes the town in detail, every character that has ever lived in it, and every inch of it, and all of this, every soldier, and is 5 to 10 pages long, every DM will look at it and be like, oh, not again. But if it's too short, like, well, I am an amnesiac and I cannot remember what I did. It's, again, too bad. A great example is, let's say, 1 to 2 pages maximum of a Word document, let's say, with a bigger font, of course. But why does the backstory length actually matter? Well, me, as a dungeon master, just got some of my players' backstories, and thankfully, none of them gave me 3 words or just 3 phrases and that's it. And me scrambling for ideas of what I'm gonna do with it. Well, if they gave me 3 phrases or something like this, it's, hey, these are the notes I'm gonna give you to right now because I'm actually working on something bigger, but so you know what you're dealing with. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. But when one of my players actually sent a 5 page Word document, my reaction was, oh no. Not because it was bad or something, because, well, to be fair, when you're given a 5 page document to read out of the blue, you're like, ugh. Not because it's bad or anything, but because it's long. It's really long. Do I have something against him? Not really. I'm still gonna read it, but could I be a little bit more concise? Probably. I will see and talk to him. And this actually leads me to my second point. Actually, talk with your players or with your dungeon master. What do you mean by that? Well, if you just create a story in a vacuum, does it actually matter or is it gonna influence your campaign? Yes and no. But if you talk with your dungeon master and leave a bit of a wiggle room for him to do as he thinks, that might be interesting. For example, let's say you're not gonna say who killed your parents in that Batman style of backstory we just created in the start, but let your DM think about it. Maybe he's not gonna reveal it. Maybe you also have a sibling and he went missing and you're looking for him. Well, you might give it a name or two, or let the DM help you with one if he has one. Or maybe your parents were killed by a suspicious cult. Well, I'm gonna put it suspicious because let's say you know the name, but the DM chose it for you. Why? Because it fills in the story with the other players. So, do not create a story in a vacuum. Always create it with a purpose. But how do we actually communicate with the dungeon master or the players about what we like or don't like or wish to change? Or, hey, you have free reign here or here. Well, I know it's hard to believe, but actually talk to them. And if you're the dungeon master, you have a little bit more free reign, let's say. Why? You because you are the dungeon master. You create all the world, right? So you may be like, hey, let me give you a name for the cult or for that baddie. Or you could let your players roam free. But if you, let's say, snoop a bit and change some names, or if your players let you change some names, in my opinion, those are the best kinds of stories in the end. Why? Because your stories become linked with the party and maybe even the actual story. And when your players realize that their evil warlock that maybe killed a parent or two is actually the same guy that another player has been looking for, that moment of Spider-Man memory, well, that's golden. And when you reach that point, you know you struck gold. Now, I have another tip that's pretty good to implement in my opinion. And what would that be? Well, linking some of your party's backstories together. And what I mean is, let's say you have a group of 5 players. Well, you could link them 2 and 3. Why does this actually matter? Because your players know at least another player when they reach the forever tavern you're gonna get to start the campaign. And they have some trust, let's say, in another player, right? But isn't that just questionable? Why should I link my players together? Well, first, I don't mean their stories are exactly the same. No, not exactly. Let's say they get to the same point, right? Let's say we have a rogue that's been stealing, and he ends up stealing from a sorcerer, right? In the market. And, well, they end up bonding with each other and end up in our quite dubious little tavern for our first adventure with the rest of the party. But that rogue and sorcerer have some linked past for, let's say, a month or two at least, right? They know each other, they know what to expect, and they might trust each other a bit. I'm not talking about the rogue sharing the exact same backstory as the sorcerer. No, 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 no. I'm saying somewhere in their backstories, they end up meeting each other and they decided to travel along until the point our story actually starts. And that is how you start creating bonds between players. And one of my favorite parts is, alright, my players have linked backstories, but each one of them has at least a bit of a secret. Maybe they're looking for someone. Maybe they're looking for something. Or maybe they really want to find that MacGyver device that they need for some important quest that they don't really want to talk about, not at the start at least. And that makes you, as the dungeon master, be able to create some fun scenarios where a player suddenly realizes their MacGyver device is right in front of them, and the party wants to destroy it. But you, as the player, you really need it. You desperately need it. It's the one thing that you desire. You actually need it, maybe to save a friend, a family member, anything. That is another point that, in my opinion, should not be missed in any backstory. So, to wrap it all up, your backstory needs to be linked enough but to the point. Do not stray too far away and miss the point. Be concise, right? But say everything that you need to. And actually talk with your players and your dungeon master, because that's how you implement your story in the actual campaign, by maybe changing some names or an event or two to fit the narrative. And the best part is when you have linked backstories where every party member knows at least one other party member, so they start forming a bond. And of course, a secret is always welcomed, especially for the dungeon masters. But now, I want to hear from you. How would you create a backstory that sticks around with you even years after you finished your campaign? Drop it in the comments. I really want to steal some ideas from my game. See ya!